like to be able to hang things with pinpoint accuracy? Today I want to walk you through some tips in hanging items on your walls. If you want to be precise as to where an item hangs, you only really need three essential tools to get started: a pencil, tape measure, and a level. In this video, I'm hanging multiple wine racks. I had hung a single wine rack a couple of weeks earlier, and four more she wanted hung. The most important thing about placement is identifying the exact location you need to screw into the wall. These wine racks came with their own screws and drywall anchors, and there's a total of 4 screws per wine rack that attach to the wall. One of the first measurements to take is how far the screw hole on the item is away from the top, sides, or bottom edge of the item. This measurement can be added vertically or horizontally if you're using an edge as a reference point on the item. For the wall, you can use the ceiling or some other point as a reference point to where you will be marking your screw hole on the wall. Because all the wine racks are identical, I simply identify the top right screw of each wine rack as my item's reference point. Because I'm hanging multiple wine racks that I want to look uniform, I have to first determine the total area I'm working with. So I measured from the furthest edge of the original wine rack all the way over to where I want the last wine rack to end. In this example, the total area is 100 inches for me to hang 5 wine racks. Now, to get an equilateral uniform distance between the wine racks, I need to divide the total inches by 4. Many people would think this would divide by 5 since there are 5 wine racks, but there's only 4 spaces between the wine racks. You do need to subtract the width of the 5th wine rack from the total distance since it will not be in the equation. So in this case, the total area of 92 inches is divided by 4, which gives me a distance of 23 inches between the top right screw of the first wine rack to the top right screw of the second wine rack, and so on. The top right screw measures 18 inches from the ceiling down. So 18 inches from the ceiling will be the height of the top right screw for all the wine racks. Because I have a level, I only need to measure the top right screw and will use the level to mark the wall for the other 3 holes for each wine rack. I simply place the level against the wine rack to level the wine rack. Without the use of a level, in order to make things straight, you would have to measure for multiple screw placements for each wine rack. But with the level, once I have the one screw, I can level the wine rack and mark all the other screws in place without any measurement. In the video, I did have to mark the walls multiple times because my initial marks were from the edge of the first wine rack, but the screws are centered 1 inch from the top and 1 inch from the side of the wooden piece of the wine rack. Because you are aiming for symmetry, you want to be precise and measure. Otherwise, eyeballing it works in most cases. The wine racks needed to be assembled, so I had 24 little wood screws per wine rack that I had to screw in. In assembling the wine racks, I was much more efficient with assembling the last wine rack than the first one. So find a system that works for you. Don't be afraid to change it up. My wrist was hurting using a screwdriver. I went to the drill, got everything done much quicker. Now, some tips on drilling into wine wall. Be mindful of what may be behind the drywall when drilling. Drill cautiously, never force the drill because you don't want to drill into water pipes or electrical wires. When I had hung the original wine rack, I was running into a horizontal air return vent and wound up having to lower placement of the wine rack about 7 inches. Luckily, I did not have any major problems with the hole placements of the new wine racks. There were a couple of places in which I hit the studs directly and could not use the drywall anchors. When this happened, I immediately stopped drilling with the drill bit that was sized to support the drywall anchor and changed it to a drill bit that allowed me to pre-drill for the much smaller screw size only. So same hole, just a smaller drill bit so that the screw will screw tight into the stud and will support the fixture. If you're looking for a handyman in the South Kansas City area, DM me and I'll be in touch.